Hello, this is Debbie, and this is Light Up Your Word. I'm so excited to bring you Holly Hughes is a TEDx speaker, an award-winning author, and intuitive healer. Drawing inspiration from her journey, Holly channels her life experiences and utilizes her special gift to offer unique guidance and healing. Specializing in navigating emotional pivots and life transitions, she firmly believes that one's past is not a defining factor, but an integral part of their story, allowing individuals to shape their future. Holly employs a compassionate, step-by-step process to empower clients to reclaim their voices, pursue their passions, and recognize their self-worth. Her book, Real Not Perfect, How to Become Your Happy Authentic Self, serves as a transformation guide, encouraging individuals to break free from societal expectations and uncover the versions of themselves they aspire to be. Holly's mission is to inspire others to embrace authenticity and live a fulfilled life on her terms. She provides coaching and counseling through her specialized Real Not Perfect Academy and individual healing sessions. When she's not helping others live the life they dream about, you may find her dancing, listening to K-pop, or planning her next trip to Seoul. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We started to talk in the green room, and then we're like, oh, we just need to hit record.
Absolutely.
One of the things we started to talk about, which I find really interesting, because we have so many things happening right now
Mm,
in our own lives, with our communities that we live in, the country. We're in the United States. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's global uncertainty. There's multiple wars going on. And intuitives and empaths and coaches, and we're just the sensitive bunch, right? All of us woke people, as they're all glumping everybody into these days. But we pick up on all of the collective energies, I think even more. And we started to talk about what are we doing to really keep ourselves grounded and walking through some uncertainty that is happening out there. And you were sharing some of what you were doing to be able to help yourself through that, because I think it's important for the listeners to know that they're not alone, right? It's a daily thing for me. It's a
for sure.
daily thing for you. It's a daily for all the people who I know who are feeling this, but some people may not realize that it's not theirs.
Yeah. An unaware empath.
Mhm.
So those really sensitive people, I have this amazing, I'll post it when you know you're going to air this. I will put my empath quiz back out up on the free download on my website. Y'all can go in. It's like my favorite little empath quiz. We are an empath when some of the basic things are you can't watch violence on television. You're the person that your friends come to and turn to, that you just get a feeling in the room. If you are like new to intuition or anything, like even the idea of being an empath, a really easy gauge would be, have you ever walked into a room after someone's had a fight and felt it in the
Mm.
air? That's a really easy way to know that a gift of some kind on some level, that you can feel the energy in the hostility or the hurt feelings. And it's like how you were brought up and depending on like how it will land in your body. So as we're recording this, it's just after Hurricane Helene, and I live in North Carolina. And so we were affected by the hurricane, but not at all compared to the people in the mountains who are just being wiped out. So how it's affecting me is I wake up sick every day. I feel super nauseous. I'm really dizzy. Like my vertigo is acting up. And my appetite is wackadoodle. It's hot and cold. I'm literally cold all the time right now. Right now, I'm sitting on a heating pad and there's no reason. It's warm outside. So
Mhm.
that's how my body is responding. I'm being told, like, I clear my crystals every day now. So again, if people don't know how to do that, salt in a nice, I put it in a nice glass in the sun for the daylight and I'm just rotating them out. I'm keeping selenite, a really high vibration and self-clearing stone around me. And then I really turn inward because grounding in the earth right now, because the earth around me is suffering, not really feeling so good. Like it just connects me to, I feel landslide energy every time I try to ground, which is so scary for me. Like the feeling of being buried alive and drowned in earth, like that's the feeling I get. It's awful. So
Yeah.
I would rather just go really into my body. And I'm an expressive introvert, but I just get super introverty and just like nestle inside myself. And then one of my favorite ridiculous self-care things besides exercise is I'm a K-drama fan, so I watch Korean shows and I will put on something ridiculous and sweet and predictable, and then it just calms my nervous system.
Yes. I love all of those. When I think about you not being able to connect into the earth, because that's the one that we hear so much about, right?
Mm.
Go connect in. But when you're feeling that energy of what has happened to the Mother Earth, she's been traumatized. I know this is a silly thing for something so serious, but I think of that old Christmas movie, right? The two brothers, the
Mm.
hot and the cold,
Oh
heat
yeah, the heat
miser,
miser. Oh my God, yeah, I'm
right?
there for that, right?
And
Yeah.
how that's how, because people might think, well, if you're connecting into Mother Earth had, there was more than her there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
created all of that. It wasn't like she knew that
It
was,
wasn't just grounding. I can
uh,
go deeper. I often say, like, when I do guided meditations, that we're going to connect to the star energy in the center of the planet. And I can get there. But to get there, I have to go through fear. I can feel everyone's fear. I can
mhm,
feel everyone's grief and desperation and why. And this is unfair. And it's like fear is not a good enough word because when you're searching for someone, you don't know where they are and you have no control. It's devastation.
mhm,
Or I was also explaining to you that I've lost my home once to a fire and then a second time to an earthquake, to two different natural disasters. So I'm pretty well prepared. Not wait, knock wood. But I don't take that for granted. But the idea of going to reach for something that's soothing or comforting for you, even if it's like a favorite sweatshirt and it doesn't exist,
mhm,
like that's the part that people don't think about. I know what it's like to be standing on the street in a bathrobe because I have nothing else after the Northridge earthquake. And hours after the earthquake, an acquaintance friend, it's always the acquaintance friend, it's never my good friends. These people pulled up to find me and the person I was with at the time and took me to their grandparents' house. I literally had nothing. I had nowhere to go. I had nothing. If you think about that kind of kindness is necessary in the world, I've been thinking a lot about this as well. This younger group of people in the world are very much in tune with, and the world has given great importance, their parents gave great importance to teaching them that their emotions are important. But the only emotion they're really connected to is outrage and self righteousness. But they're not taught how to process the feeling in a better way to communicate and connect. Instead of connecting, they're labeling.
mm,
It's okay if we're in the same generation. It's the adjective school of rock. He walks prickly, fuzzy, nice, happy, pretty. Like he goes and puts labels, but that's dividing humanity right now. It's
mhm,
not bringing us together. There's no compassion. There's just right and wrong. And you're wrong if you don't completely and utterly agree with me, as if you're a single note in a single thing, and it's not that. So I implore people to dive into the complexities of their emotions and get past the initial response. Whatever that initial response is, go deeper. And that's where healing happens. That's where connection happens. It's not just you are so wrong, you're so stupid, how could you not want this? Murder is wrong. Murder absolutely is wrong. And how do we bring peace? And too much ease at propaganda? Like for me, going through social media, And seeing propaganda from centuries ago still up in the world and getting voices if someone is beautiful and eloquent. It's like we're just repeating these patterns. And I've asked the universe, why did I choose like right now to come down? Because the world's crazy. Its pants are on fire. Like, I don't, it's nuts. And I think my soul has a sense of humor. And I think before I was born, I was hanging out with God and we were having a cocktail and a cigarette. And I was like, okay, so God, this time, let's clear out the karma with this person. I want to know what I really want people who could teach me what isolation. Yeah, I want to feel lonely. Oh yeah, give me some. I want to know what grief is. I want to know grief of loss. But wait, not just one kind of loss. Let's pepper in all these other things. And it's ridiculous what I've asked for. I'm halfway. What the hell am I asking for in the second half? I don't know. Hence the heating pad and the fuzzy animals. I'm just saying, we just don't know. I use humor to deflect, whatever, but I would really encourage people to explore more than their initial reactions.
Mm.
Just don't think that's taught. Right. If you're working in systems and processes, if you put me in front of an Excel spreadsheet, let's just call it that, past 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I can't get anything. I don't know what happens at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. My order, it blurs. It just blurs. I just my dip, right?
Mhm.
So my initial reaction, if you told me to go fix something, I would probably just be frustrated. But the grown up response is I see that needs to get done. How soon does it need to get done? I focus better on math in the morning. Can we wait, or is there someone who can help? Or do you know a trick that I don't know? You can ask for help
Mhm.
and achieve something. And maybe when you're giving someone's help, they get to shine.
Mm.
You're meeting them in their humanity, not that they're doing something to you. Look what you made me do, Debbie. You made me do math in the afternoon. You're so awful. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's just like a little, that's very simplistic, but like I want to like help spin the worldview a little kinder.
Yeah, I remember I'm 58, right? So I grew up in the 70s, late 60s. I was born in
I'm 55, babe. We're
yeah, so
close.
we're
We
right there,
close.
right? And we were taught, I grew up in Northern California in a working class neighborhood and very diverse. And we were really poor in some areas. And we were taught from a mom who came from Texas. Okay, so she comes from the South. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we were taught is that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything.
Mm.
And I had this very my nanny, she was my wait, others might think of as a grandmother. And she said this at the end of her life. She says, everybody thinks I'm Pollyanna and I don't see all the other stuff. She goes, but I choose to see the good in everyone. Everybody has something good in them. And I thought, isn't that a powerful thing to find the good in everyone? And I think some of these, even though they're so simplistic, not everybody had this idea of necessarily being nice or what is compassion, or maybe they've
Mm.
never felt grief or different types of grief. It takes the extremities for people to come together. Maybe that was why there's such a huge natural cause, because we need to come together
Mm-hmm.
as a world, as a country,
Mm-hmm.
and promote love and compassion and us lifting each other up. Uh, Especially those who are aware of this, even with it doesn't matter how spiritual somebody is, it doesn't mean they're always nice.
Oh no, I have a temper. I like to tell people it's okay because we're here for a human experience,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And I can see the best in you, but I also can see someone who I won't get along with, so I'll just stay away from you. So just stay away from me. But I think it really is like the troll kind of mentality and social media and everything. They made clickbait negative energy, and then they addicted the human mind to it, right? And so when you try to do other, you're not getting traction, you might not get followers, but does that really matter? It doesn't. It's just it's a false currency, right? So there's some people who like try to share insights or whatever, and there's some people indoctrinated into their, we'll just say, lower vibrational beliefs.
Mhm.
There's people who think the only way to fix it is to break everything. My question always is, what is the they empower? What do you want? What? Don't you have enough? Don't you? Don't you have enough? Let's have a little nice. But I also wonder if the human experience since history repeats itself and we're living in the awesome matrix. When they made the matrix really nice, it broke. So, what is it in humanity that needs that struggle? It's
Mhm.
fascinating. That was like a totally tangent, but I was like,
Yeah.
I'm like, what is that?
You know what I always think about but every time somebody thinks of the Matrix, of course I think of the movie, right?
Right.
But how old is that movie now? And
20 years, something?
we've watched that. Oh, I just love him. Oh
Keanu. Yeah, for sure.
gosh, he's such a sweetheart. By the time they even made it to a movie we could see, somebody had to write it. They had to go film it. It could be 25 years old
At
now,
least older. I
right?
lived and worked in LA for 18 years, so it takes a long time to get a movie made. Long time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And you think about that, and now we're hearing about it all the time about people. I'm living the matrix and I'm all of the stuff. And I'm like, I don't think I'd be if I'm in it or not in it, but and that might sound strange coming from somebody who's spiritual and an
Mhm.
intuitive, but I think we're all at these different places on that spectrum of what we're connected in. And one of the things the podcast has taught me is that there's so many versions of what and being intuitive is. Some people talk to people who have passed. Some people talk to animals. Some people talk to horses. Some people talk to other beings in
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
places. Some people, and we're not talking all the same people that they're all talking to, right? Some of them are talking to the councils of the
Mm. The
Marians, and
Arcturians, the
yeah,
Venturians, the Palladians. Yeah,
yeah,
bring it.
yeah,
Hey,
right?
people, I can't hear Palladians. I never hear them. My friend hears them. I get the same info, but we get it different.
Mhm.
I could tap into all that. I don't like talking to dead people. They give me a headache.
They
Like when I
scare
see
me,
they don't
actually.
always elevate. I like to tell people that those who've passed are not angels. That's totally different things. This is a funny story. I was like, do I believe in angels? I don't know if I believe in angels. What is that? Is that like a man-made thing? And then one sat on me. They're like, you want to feel me? And he like, and it just, I was like, you're funny. Please stop. Please stop. So then I was like, oh, then I could figure out that vibration. Like, even like you were saying, there's also different levels, there's different gifts. There's people who try to explore their gifts and go further. There's people who are like just okay with it. And I don't like everyone with gifts either, right? We're just people.
Mhm.
So some of them I click with and some I don't. And that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, even the differences between the more enlightened people, but we're all, like you said, we're all here having a human experience. And what did we sign up for? When you were being sent down, I was like, okay, what did I agree to sign up for? Oh, discovering my worth. Oh, you're going to be in relationships. Oh, you're going to learn about what was really happening in your childhood home versus you thinking what actually happened, and it's going to
Huge.
be before you could even talk. Like you're just not even going to understand it all. And then at some point, you're going to, after multiple decades, you're going to step into feeling your own worth. And everybody's going to think you've lost your mind because you don't want to follow all of the standard ways. And not that I lived a whole completely standard life anyway.
Yeah. I think about that sometimes when I come across people who have, I can say I had a small stint in corporate America. I worked at a .com for a little while. I was miserable. When I walk into a corporate environment, the part that I notice is that no one gets to be themselves.
Mhm.
They're either achieving something for some reason. I'm trying to be really general here, or those who are super successful dare to break the mold. And I don't think if I'm at a job, at any job, even my job, when you like work with someone, I'm keep my personal stuff personal. I share stories about myself a lot, but you don't know about. what I made for dinner or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like you keep a boundary between what's professional and private. That makes sense. You don't need to be leaving your business everywhere at work, but it doesn't mean that you can't be an honest version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when I walk in, I see all the masks and I see all the self deceit, or my other favorite thing that I see, it's like shadows walking everywhere in offices, is your family trauma being recreated in your office, in those dynamics and the people that you work with. If you haven't healed something, it's going to show up there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't work it out there, it's going to come back to your private life, maybe both simultaneously. I don't know. I know for me, I wasn't exactly enlightened in my 20s. That was a hot neurotic mess, right? And I was reliving my traumas over and over again until I decided, no, no more.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't do this anymore. But then that you have to be brave enough to make change. That's the in that moment in your life when you're brave enough to make change, that's where I want to meet you. That's where I want to offer you all the support I could connect into and be like, okay, so how do you want it? What pace do you want to move?
Mm-hmm.
How do we make what's uncomfortable worth it? Because you can get through bad days.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just gloss over them. Glossing over them and pretending or waiting till later is what ends up getting people sick and unhappy and like all the things. Yeah, all the things.
What I have found amazing is that I spent 20 years in a pretty dysfunctional, would be how I'll say it, relationship, but I have a wonderful son from it. That's a long time to be
Mm,
marinating in it. And it's just the longest one. But before that, you have like high school boyfriends
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and all of those type of experiences that you're going through. And then you jump into the corporate world like you're talking about. And I remember thinking, why did I know stuff that was happening, especially as I started to move up in corporate America more in my 30s, because I first had to really, in that relation, we just had to stop because both people were he was miserable as well
Mm-hmm.
as I am, and I have a part in that. It's not all him, for sure. When I really started becoming aware was after 9/11, and
Mm.
that really hit me upside the head, and did my first Reiki attunement and really started to even figure out, like, why don't you feel this stuff in this conference room? Why don't you feel like why they're all behaving certain ways? And why am I the only one really trying to build real relationships with all of these different people to be able to navigate through? What I have found so interesting, because that's when I was in high tech in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved into healthcare. It's been like 20 years now, 2011. It's been a decade. And I thought, oh, it'd be easier, gentler people. No.
Doctors, egos, nurses, all that pain, all that literal pain that you're dealing, all that trauma, all that illness, all that.
Yeah.
Hospitals are my least favorite spaces. Besides, they're filled with dead people. So for me, walking in, I have to be fully protected energetically, especially if I have to go
Mhm.
see family like in an ER and stuff like that. Or you're just like,
Yeah, you definitely need to have lots of
ugh.
protection in there. I thought even maybe like administration roles and all of
Mm,
that. No, they're actually
no.
worse. They're actually worse. And I have found that really heartbreaking. But I've noticed the more and more that I've stepped into who I'm still becoming is that firmly though in my worth is that I have more and more struggles in that environment, right? Wasn't just one or two, but it seems to be like, okay, I think they're done with you. They're like, it's just not, there's
Not a
no way you
fit.
can make it a fit anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna
You
have,
outgrew it.
yes,
Time to shed that skin.
yeah. And yet we all hold on to it because of the whole matrix thing. It's familiar. It's really out of your comfort zone when you
I don't know
think,
that feeling. I've always been freelance. I have
"Mm,
never. So for me, when people like talk about like some of that stuff, I'm like, it's really foreign. It's really foreign. right? I've always had a contract. It was only like a couple of months or a show or this, or even what I do now. I'm freelance as a writer. I got paid after I turned something in. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I had benefits. I don't have 401k, none of that stuff that ends up like being so helpful. But like it's just not, I know, crazy. That's not how a freelancer lives at all. So I find that fascinating. I think when you know that you've outgrown something, you just call a better fit. I think you're really good at what you do. So there's no need not to do it. You just have to not do it around like that person who's cranky. I'll just call them cranky, right? In that
Mhm.
space, right? Who infects everyone with their crankiness. There's no pleasing that, but you're done with that lesson. Like when for me in production, everyone in LA were all beautifully creatively neurotic. And I was really good at knowing what people needed and fulfilling that need to the detriment of my own soul and giving my ideas and my creativity away and never getting credit. And I was like, I think I'm done with that. I think I'm done with that. And that was massively frightening. So, how do you walk away from something that you've been working on for 10 years? And I walked away. And then that's your social circle. And once you walk away and you're not helping other people get work, that's your friends, right? That's how friends work in LA. What can you do for me kind of thing.
Mhm.
So there is always a band of, I'll call it a band of fear or fog of fear to get through the other side, but you can make a choice and try. And wherever you land next to do process, maybe it's 5 years there. And then next on to the next. Because the world isn't built like when we were growing up, people worked for the same company forever. I know people who change jobs every 2 years.
I've yeah, I've been part of two layoffs, right under 2 years, and now this one's barely 2.5 years, and
Yeah.
it's happening
Look,
again.
222. It's a good
Yeah.
number. Next. You're
Yeah.
on to the fives. 555. That feels good. Doesn't that
Versus
feel
where I
good?
used to have longer times, right?
Yeah.
5 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
and now you're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, I like to think of it as more opportunity. I think energetically, you probably felt this too. This summer has been, it's now the fall, whoever's listening, but it's like the summer of 2024, it was what I call the great void. I've been in a void and like all those things that I've been building up and creating and manifesting and all that fun stuff. It got super quiet. And I was like, oh, why? And they're like, stop. I'm like, no. I'm like I'm a doer. I'm a planner.
Mhm.
I like to say I used to be type A plus and I'm an A minus in a personality, right? So how am I going to do it now? I don't know, but they're telling me it's time to do it different. I don't know what different looks like. I don't personally like that either. But when you don't listen to it, like I was getting ready to make this whole, actually, I planned an entire retreat to Sedona and I put it out in the world and I got trolled. I got trolled. I was like, look, I'm not going to Sedona to sit in a circle and ohm. I'm not, that's not what I'm there for. Mine was like action. Let's go. We're going to do 12 hours and we're going to Antelope Canyon and we're going to all these places. We're going to be in the van and gone and exploring and doing. And they're like, but oh, I'm like, then you're not a fit. That's all. But I was like, okay, am I trying to make this happen too much? Do I want it because I want to provide it for someone? I was like, I guess I do, but you know what? I'm going to stop and see what happens. Because usually I'll just keep going
Mhm.
because like I need to achieve it. Because as a writer, if I don't push myself to do it, it's not going to get done. So I have that gear. But then sometimes you're like, oh, I think that's a not right now. How annoying. I did all that work.
Mhm.
How annoying. But okay, I'm going to make space for something bigger. And I think as a healer or anyone going through those changes, not controlling every part of it and that surrender and
Mhm.
trust is where a lot of magic happens. It's a really difficult place to be in.
Being in it right now, it is very difficult. Very difficult. It's why I'm doing the podcast episodes because it's joy. I have to
Yep.
connect with the joy. It's going to ground me to
Mm-hmm.
do the connection. But going back to what your experience was, is that I've noticed in a lot of my spiritual entrepreneurs is that a lot of them were actually talking about almost exactly what you just said over the summer of
Yeah.
2024. before, and
I
we
know.
are in fall now, and and they're all getting similar type of messages that they need to do it or they need to go bigger. They need to do something different than what they've been just trying to roll these boulders up the hill, and that's not it. There's something else for them to do.
Yeah. Which makes me worried about all the things that are upcoming in the world. So I
Mhm,
guess I'm just waiting. And then I'll just turn on a K drama or I'll go to a dance class. For me, that's how I have to tap into and relax and ground and let it go.
mhm,
And I almost all of my healing friends, from sound healers to psychic and reader, like every little branch of whatever, this summer, the past, yeah, 4 months, even I would call her the most powerful person I know, someone I really admire. She even deleted everyone online. I need to retreat. I was like, whoa, it
mm.
was interesting. And
It
she
was.
embraced it. I'm fighting it, but we all have our personal hiccups, right? Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I just keep leaning into being 58 is that I've been through challenging times before. If I just really focus, it's going to work out. It's going to look different than I thought, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's
Right.
generally better. It's a different experience, a different adventure. This is actually what you asked for. When you were up there, when I was up
I
there
know that's a
talking with
damn sense
God,
of
and
humor of mine.
yeah, you were smoking a cigarette. I was probably eating ice cream because that's what I
I
think.
can't eat ice cream. I'm lactose intolerant. It's just not worth the pain
Yeah,
after. I don't smoke either. It's just
yeah.
that whole very,
Yeah.
very 90s in the bar thing, right?
I just saw that. Oh, what was her name? The rabbit gal. Remember in the 90s? Oh,
Jessica Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit. I just saw a vision of Jessica Rabbit.
I'll take that. I'll take her for my rest of my 50s onward. I'll just be a little of that. But yeah, a
Yeah.
little, yeah, I don't know. I think it really comes down to tying it all up together is I think it's okay to slow down. It's okay to not know the next step exactly. I'm not telling you just sit and be defeated. I'm not saying that. Receiving is very different than that. Sorting and processing is different than that. Instead of throwing a label on a person, a place, or a thing, how about we like connect to humanity? If you can travel, go somewhere you haven't been, even if it's just 2 towns over, because when you actually are around people, you'll find that you have more in common with them than you don't. And
Mhm.
you'll feel more connected and it will be better. And that just requires putting your phone away.
Yes, I really think that putting that phone away, now they're showing the studies of how it's has impacted all the generations
Mm-hmm.
before us or after us, I guess. They're not older than
Right.
us, but how it really has impacted their ability to connect and have the empathy because it's so distant. It's like playing a video game. Even if they're not playing a game, it's not connected to somebody. Would you really say that to somebody in person? And if you would, why? Why would you say that? Would you say that in front of your grandmother? I hope not, or your
Well, I think that goes back into like my whole question when, like, how are you raising your child? As a parent, you're supposed to parent, you're not supposed to be their friend. You're supposed to help grow a person.
Mhm,
You're not supposed to become emotionally enmeshed and married to your children's emotional state. And their emotional state, although valuable and very important, shouldn't always be the most important thing because then you're raising narcissists. And it's okay for them to struggle. When they learn to walk, they fell. At every stage in our life, we're like doing that. We just hope not to harm others in that quest. But that is how you explore. That's how you individuate. That's how you become your own person.
mhm,
So, my question for everyone who's so enmeshed is who are you without that label of mother or father?
mm. Yeah, that's oh, wow. I don't know what I would even say
That
as
was
a
what my
mother.
TED talk was on, right? It was like, why
Yeah,
is it the first question I'm asked is, how many children do you have?
mm,
Hmm. No matter like who the woman is, that's one of the first things they're asked. And I love being a mother. It is very important to me in my life. It's like a dream of mine. And And there's plenty of people who choose not to have children, who can't have children. There's so many stories around it. Can that be one of the questions that we put on hold to number two or three, or wait for the person to bring it up? What
Mhm.
would you ask someone if you're not asking them to label themselves that way? At the end of my TEDx talk, you guys should now go listen. It's on YouTube. Look up my name. But I give you three questions to try instead. And maybe it's just something to think about.
Mhm. Yes, that is something to think about because, or some of us even wanted more children
Hmm.
and we chose not to because of the circumstances we were in. We knew that would be more detrimental
Mm-hmm.
for the child coming
Yeah,
into this earth to have those experiences. And I did not want to be knowing what the environment would be.
for sure. So you made a mature choice. You
So
didn't just base it on your desire and your instinct. Do you know what I'm saying? But that's maturity. That's getting past the first feeling of what
yeah,
you want.
it didn't feel so
Mhm.
mature in my 20s,
Yeah,
my
but
early 20s, but it
right.
is though, really. But I wish not that it makes a difference now, but I wish I knew now what I didn't know back then with some of choices, right? But I think that's all part of the maturity and going through this experience. And when we're up there talking before we come down, what are
Yeah.
we going to be learning?
Wait for Saturn return. Everyone gets married, has kids, or gets divorced at 28. I don't really know anyone who doesn't, right? The 27 to 30, that Saturn return. If you can hold off getting married till after you're 30, even live together. I know a lot of people won't like that, but play house. But there's some magical things that I hope people in their 20s, especially nowadays, go explore the world. Don't worry so much about your career. You got a long life. We live till we're old
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
And if you're an entrepreneur, but like explore and figure out who you are out of your family dynamic. I'm not saying to isolate and cut them off. You might have a great family. I hope you do. But who are you on your own 2 feet, and learn to walk on your own 2 feet and see which direction they take you.
What's interesting about that is I think that this audience is generally over 40, over 50, in their 60s. And a lot of us didn't do that, right? We jumped into what was expected of us. And now we're coming of this age, and a lot of people are still married, or they're divorced, or they're starting fresh at a later part of their life, or they're listening to that. I really wanted to do blah, 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 whatever
Mhm.
it is, right? And being able to realize that you still have time to go do that.
100%. You might not be able to do it the way you used to. You might not physically be able to keep up, but no duh. And that's okay. Like I'm going to tell you, of course, it messes with your ego or your sense of, if you hear how much I crack when I wake up in the morning, or that like I have to go to the chiropractor or my physical therapist, right? All of the things to keep maintenance, keep the machine going, keep the machine going forward. I get all of that. But like even last year, I'm in a long-term marriage. I went and traveled alone.
Mhm,
My family was like, no, go. You go do that thing that's going to make you so happy. Was I scared? Of course I was. Oh
mhm.
my God, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be on a plane for 16, 18 hours all by myself. This is insane. I'm doing it again though. Now I loved it so much. I'm like, peace out. See you. Bye. I'm going. I had to get past my own family, my parents' fear of me being gone. What are you going to do? What happens if all of those things? Right? Like I
Mhm,
had to manage, and I could feel all of it. I have to be like, that's not mine. I don't like need any of that. I don't need that. That's not what it's about. And I got to connect with something, a place that called me.
mhm. Where's
And
your
you must.
next trip?
Oh no,
Oh,
I'm going back. I told you I'm
oh,
obsessed with Korea. I'm going back to Korea.
mhm.
I just loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, something there's calling you, huh?
Yeah. It's really
Yeah.
funny because I try to study Korean. I'm very bad at it. But like when I was walking through a few places, especially in Gyeongju, I could see things in the trees. Like I'm still seeing whatever. I was at a temple. I saw it's a togebi. Togebi? I think I'm not saying that right. Dogebi. Togebi, that's it. It's basically their little spirits, but they look like it's not like a dog, but it's like a bear doggy looking thing. Anyway, I'm walking through like Seoul at first. I was like, what is that thing? I took a picture of it and then I realized I was seeing them in the woods. So I think whoever their healers were seeing like whatever their spirits are. That's how they show up. It's like when I watch some shows that are done on American Indian soil or Native American, and
Mhm.
I'll see Loki, I'll see different things when that's their law, but I see it just like that. And that's amusing. So, but I was in this one place and I was like, they're watching me. I'm like, can you watch me in a way that is not that creepy? Because it was getting scary. And I was at a temple and I was in Busan. I was in, it's mountainous. Like Korea is mountainous. And so we basically walk up the top of this mountain. You're at this beautiful temple. And I walked away from everyone because I really wanted to ground in the energy I was feeling. And I told everyone in my little group, I was like, I just need a little bit of time alone. And I was like, okay, you're staring at me. You're freaking me out. I also saw tunnels underneath it. I'm really sure they hid things from the Japanese occupation there, but there's no way to double check that.
Mhm.
I was like, can you show me in a different way? And then a kitten came out and it wasn't a kitten. If you know what I mean, have you ever seen an entity come as something else? And
Mhm.
then the one person in the group that wasn't my favorite person, she's like, a cat is go away. Do not attract that thing's attention because it wasn't good. And then I turned and it just vanished. It was not like a cat ran away. It literally was there and then it wasn't. I was like, okay. But so I would see these dokebi, or also in Gyeongju, I was seeing a white horse, but it was a skeleton. And I saw it roaming these burial mounds. And then I went into, they have one, it's, I guess the best way to explain it is very simple to like the pyramids in, right? Like they bury people there and they have treasure.
Mhm. Mhm.
But do you know what their sacred spirit there was?
No.
White skeleton horse, the white horse.
Oh.
So I don't know this. So I was like, oh, so I really would like to go back to those places in less of a rush because it was like 8 days. It was very fast. And to just see if I could hear more
Mhm.
like that. This is amazing. Also, culturally, they're so different than us. And there's like rules and regulations in a monoculture that I like being respectful or quiet on public transportation, like all the things that are very not American. And I really liked it.
Mhm. Yeah. I've traveled pretty extensively through Asia because of my corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be sent over there for weeks and I would use the weekend to go explore. And so I got some really life-changing experiences of transformation and picking up parts and pieces of myself
Mm-hmm.
along the way, which I like to do. Highly encourage people to do that when they're traveling anywhere, right? And I really enjoyed learning about the different cultures, about Thailand and
Mm-hmm.
Japan and the Philippines. And now I'm getting a blank of all the places I went where I had 13 plants to
Right.
look over and then going and doing different things. And it was just so different and stuff that you could not easily translate into the transformation that happens inside with
Yeah,
travel.
exactly. Reconnect to a playfulness, finding like-minded people, being really other someplace.
Hmm.
I loved it. I'm a curious person about many cultures anyway, but for me, it just made me want to dive into the history and realize how much I didn't know, how much I didn't really know. And so I like that exploration. I'm a curious
Hmm.
person. For me, I would highly encourage anyone to do that. And again, middle age and older, you can. There's plenty of groups and things online. I think it's called, I'm not affiliated with it, so whatever, but I think it was the Journey Woman, but it's for 50-year-olds plus who want to travel and solo travel, and they give you ways to do it. And so you feel safe and what all of those other smart things to do. Yeah, I love it. I love if I
Hmm.
could. My husband is a giant, so if he was a little smaller of a person, it would be easier to travel. But he's 6'5", so he doesn't like fit.
I met some of the most amazing people when I was in that corporate role, having to travel so much. They put you in business class.
Mm,
And I met some of the most, I was single, by the way.
woohoo!
And I met some of the most interesting people. I met somebody who owned an airlines, a small airline, and when I was going to Thailand and end up spending one of those weekend days just going And he just showed me around,
Yeah.
completely platonic, and it was so wonderful to meet somebody who was very familiar with Thailand. And we weren't in Bangkok, we were out because that's where the plants are. And um, getting adopted by people in the Philippines when we went down and went to Batangas, which is
Mm.
where they go diving. But what I learned over there, what I found so interesting about Asia was that every country but Thailand had been conquered by the Japanese.
Oh my God, I learned I got so conflicted when I started learning so much
Hmm.
about the history of that. Right. It's just fascinating. But we're not really taught that as Americans, right? Like World War II was very, for me and my family, is very European, Eastern European experience, right?
Hmm.
But really what happened with Japan and their utter devastation of the Korean Peninsula and into China and there was just so much. So yeah, I one of my favorite things to read is historical fiction, and I follow someone who
Hmm.
talks about translated books, and I just eat them up. Just a different way of storytelling. It's fascinating.
Hmm. I love historical books that go around that create the story around
Mm,
it. I read one recently, and of course, it just skipped my mind, but it's about these two sisters who are in occupied France,
mm.
one city, one country, basically, and what they both do, and they don't even tell each other what they're doing when they're occupied. It's so interesting
Oh, that's a good
because they
one.
wrapped in, the history's accurate in
Hmm.
there, but when they humanize it with the story
Yes. Yeah.
again, it brings in the kindness and the compassion of what they're each going through and what they've experienced. And so I found it it's just so curious. I'm just curious
Yeah.
as yourself to be able to connect with that. So
Maybe that's an intuitive gift, curiosity.
mhm. It definitely is. And I also believe that I'm just reading stuff that I'm like, oh, I think I experienced some parts of this. I think that's why I'm crying so much over this book and something I must have experienced and another trip down to Earth.
We're so funny that way.
Yeah, yeah, it's a journey. So now I want to completely change subjects.
Yes.
I asked two questions
Yes.
because the first one is around music. I really believe in the power of music, it being able to uplift us, shift our mood, get us shaking our booties.
Hmm.
And so, what is a song that you would put on that will help you transform your own energy?
If I really hold up my phone and you saw all the different Korean artists on it, it's just K-pop, and depending
Okay.
on my move. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good answer because things with where you are now in this season of life, if you could go back to your younger self and tell her something about your own worth, what would you
Mm.
tell her?
It wasn't your fault and you're not responsible. Like I would that would be what I needed to hear.
Mm.
That's what I think what my youngest self, I wouldn't even know how to say it, but I was so busy in my trauma, keeping secrets and believing it was all my fault. And then I was not good enough, even though outwardly I probably didn't look like that. So if I could visit myself as a young girl, I would hold me
Mm.
past the point of being comfortable,
Mm.
just so she would know what it felt like to have that kind of support.
Mm. That's powerful.
Mm.
I can feel that.
I'm
Mhm.
going to cry, but I would. I think we all do our best to love those of us who are parents, our children to the best of our abilities,
Mhm.
right? I don't ever say that my parents didn't do that. They know I kept a lot from them because I never thought they could handle it, which is not the role of the child.
No.
As an adult, I know that, but it's also my normal. So I do this work a lot with like my clients. I guess some people call it inner child work. I don't call it that, where we get to go back in time and I'll send an angel to them when they're little.
Mhm.
So they could sit with them in those moments of either loneliness, isolation, pain, whatever like that not being seen or heard or not being able to get what you needed in the moment
Mhm.
and give that love. And then something in their body always changes.
Mm. I could use one of those angels going back.
Mm.
Yeah.
I call that angel that I work with children Josephine.
Mhm.
She's just so compassionate. She's just such a yummy mom.
Mhm.
Feel free to talk to her if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
I
you.
like her.
Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing her. This has just been so wonderful, Holly. If people want to reach out, how can they reach you?
Yeah, and most active on Instagram, Holly Hughes Intuitive is also my website. Yeah, I would love to hear from you. If you guys have a question about anything you heard, feel free to hit me up.
Yeah, go Google. We'll put the show notes too with the
Mhm.
link to
Yeah,
your YouTube you were talking that you were
yeah.
referring to as well. Thank you, Holly. It's been
Thank
such
you,
a pleasure.
Debbie.